So today we'll be talking about hold on one quick second here. Let me make sure we're all on the same page. So we'll be talking about best storage and network setup for video editing. We're going to have a few parts that we're going to talk about. First is understanding direct connectivity options from QNAP and configuration on your NAS. We're going to be talking about different connectivity options that we have. Part two, we'll be talking about QTier versus caching. Our QNAP NAS for our QNAP NAS models for video editing support both, but we're going to talk about what's the difference between both and what's the best practices, best solution for your situation. Part three, we're going to be talking about hybrid backup sync. So we'll be talking about how to back up all your video editing works to using hybrid backup sync. And lastly, we'll be joined by our partners from Seagate, who's going to talk. They're going to talk about their portfolio of drives for video editing and what's new with Seagate. So without further ado, let's get into it. So part one, we're going to be understanding direct connectivity options from QNAP. So as you know, we have for those that know or may not know, we have our Thunderbolt NAS models, which is an industry-first, industry-only solution that you can connect directly through Thunderbolt 3 to your NAS. If you got multiple folks working on a video project, a video editing project, you can connect directly to Thunderbolt to the NAS. So for high-speed data transfer, just connect quick and transfer all your data fast. We also have 10 gig ports on our TVS 872XT series, so that allows you for a steady 10 gig connection. And if you have a 10 gig switch, 10 gig environment, you have everything under one roof. But we also have different options for 10 gig and Thunderbolt connectivity, which is our adapters here. We have our QSW adapters. We have them in base T and SFP plus options. So for folks who have Thunderbolt, like for example, if you have a Mac and you want to connect directly to a 10 gig NAS, you want to have a steady connection, you have that option with our adapters. So as you can see, we have our Thunderbolt ports here, we have our 10 gig ports here, and you can connect to a NAS model. Say, if it doesn't have a Thunderbolt port on it, but does have a 10 gig port, we have a whole lineup of affordable 10 gig NAS models you can connect with our adapters. So it gives you a good option. If you don't have Thunderbolt, you can still connect with the adapters. Adapters are fairly cheap. They're under about $150 or so.
And then plus it does have the option of SFP as well. So we have a lot of NAS, right, that does come with built-in SFP plus ports. So QNAP is great in including a 10G ports on a lot of our models actually that comes built in at no extra cost. But let's say if you have a MacBook where it doesn't allow you to have PCI cards, even on iMac computers or Apple computers, you don't have the option of having adding additional PCIe cards. So you're limited to not be able to have additional cards, right? PCIe cards. So at that point, to get high-speed connectivity, those computers will have Thunderbolt 3 ports. So this is a great adapter. So you have Thunderbolt port on the back that you can connect to your Mac or to Apple computers, and then you have the 10G port on the front that you can connect to your computer. Now, if you with our QSW switches, you can also create your 10G environment where you can connect the NAS to the QSW switch, and then you have the NAS connected to, the switch connected to your Mac using this adapter. And you have SFP plus adapter, and then you have a 10G base T adapter. So we do have multiple options for you guys, so you can select any one of these to connect to your computers. For Windows computers, we have a lot of PCIe cards now that also supports Windows and Linux computers. So if you do have Windows computers you do use for video editing or your workstation, you can just connect a PCIe card on the PCIe slot of the Windows computer, and then you can connect your 10G port. And similarly to your create a 10G environment by using QSW switches. Now you don't require QSW switches to use this. You can actually use these cards to connect directly to your NAS. So you don't need a QSW switch, but if you want to create an environment, and then you do have the option to create that environment. Okay.
All right. Looks like we had a couple of questions here. Real quick. Dave McNeil, will this be Mac specific? For Thunderbolt, For Thunderbolt connectivity, right now we only support Mac. If you want to connect through Thunderbolt 3, for Windows to Thunderbolt, or Windows, if you want to connect to like a Thunderbolt NAS, you would need to use the adapters. So we're I mean, we won't talk about that.
No, so we are working on an update with Intel and Windows to there is an issue regarding Thunderbolt connectivity with our Windows computers. Now we are working with Intel and Windows because it's not a QNAP specific issue, unfortunately. So we are working with Intel and Windows to get the result. We're actually having a promising result with the new updates. We're just doing our finalized testing, and then we should be able to release an update that should be able to allow you to have now Thunderbolt connectivity through Windows computers as well. So that's the great news that we have. We wanted to share with you guys as well. Hang tight for if you have Windows computers with Thunderbolt ports, and we should be able to get that for you guys as well. Now we have another question about from Abbas is, just to clarify, do the 10G port allow direct connection? Exactly. You do have the ability to connect these adapters, or if you have a 10G computer, connect that directly to your NAS. No issues at all. Just use a Cat5e or Cat6 cable for longer distances, or Cat7 as well, and then you'll be able to connect a direct connection between your computer and and the NAS itself. Or both devices need to connect to your switch and router. So you don't need to have a switch or router in between. The advantage of having a switch or router in between is that you can share your internet connection as well. So if you have a QTier switch that has two 10G port, right? You can use one for your NAS, and then you can use one for your one of the 10G computer, and then you can use the 1G port for your internet connection. So your Mac now has internet as well as 10G connectivity to the NAS. So you don't need to have Wi-Fi, or if you have direct connection, you don't have internet. You have to rely on your Wi-Fi to get internet. So again, so that's the advantage. But direct connection is allowed. Okay.
Awesome. As Devon mentioned earlier about QSW switches, I mean, we also in the last couple of years we've been kind of transitioning beyond just storage and getting into more network devices as well. So what QNAP wants to focus on is give a video editing professional a one-stop shop to have everything that they need to have their video editing environment. So we can create all the components you need for your workflow. So we have our lineup of 10 gig switches. We have multi-gig switches also that support 2.5 gig for video editors that don't necessarily don't necessarily have a 10 gig environment or need a 10 gig environment, but you have a 2.5 gig. We also have 2.5 gig NAS models as well that are a little more affordable for folks who are just getting into video editing, or even photo folks. We have a lot of photographers that want to go that route and get 2.5 gig. We have our affordable 2.5 gig switches and a 2.5 gig NAS with a 2.5 gig port. So, I mean, we have a whole array, all depending on what capacity, what budget, what type of connectivity you need. We have a NAS model for you. So
yeah, and then our newer models, as in when we upgrade our models, you would see a lot of 2.5G NASs, or we do plan to get rid of 2.1G ports, and they'll be replaced by 2.5G. So you'll see a lot of 2.5G ports. And QNAP is one of the first manufacturers for NAS that is actually pushing 2.5 gigabit networking, because we do see that as a future. It does give you more than double the performance of 1G port without upgrading your cabling, right? You have a lot of, the only thing you have to upgrade is your NAS and your switches, right? And we do have a lot of affordable switches as well. And then we also now have 5G and 2.5G networking cards that you can connect. The 5G would also now push down to 2.5G, as well as all the way down to 1G. So right here we have these right, you have dual port 4-speed 5G expansion card that you can connect. This will be supported on the computer as well as on the NAS as well. So you have the option as well. And then we also have our 10G port. We also have 100 gigabit as well as 40 gigabit option as well. There was a question about 40 gigabit. Yes, you do have the 40 gigabit option as well. So you can get the card for your NAS as well as a card for your computer. You can do direct connection, or you can go through a switch as well. We do also have 100 gigabit network expansion card that you can actually connect to the NAS as well as to your computer. We also have 25 gigabit card, 10 gigabit card. There are a lot of options for you guys. So it depends upon your your needs as well.
Right. You had a question, why push 2.5 gig instead of 10 gig? It's just an option. We're not telling you to go either or, but some folks, you know, with 10 gig, of course, to get the optimal performance, you know, you do acquire, you know, you'd want to do rewiring. You'd want to have your 10 gig switches. You have to do a little work to get your 10 gig environment to have the optimal performance. With 2.5 gig, you could use the existing cabling that you currently have.
Exactly.
So it's just another affordable option. Of course, you won't have the performance of a 10 gig, but it's just an affordable option that we have. So for folks that don't necessarily want to take the 10 gig jump, it's just, you know, it's just an option.
10 gig again is a little bit more expensive than 2.5 gig. 10G first. Let's say if you want to upgrade to 10G, right? You have to replace all the wiring. Now most of the wires, most of the houses or businesses have wiring going through the walls, right? So these wires are hard to replace. With 10G, you have to actually replace them with Cat 6 or Cat 5e. For Cat 5, Cat 5 is great for shorter distances, but it's not recommended for longer distances. For Cat 6 or Cat 7, replacing the cable, that again, that's a cost. That's cost that'll be incurred on you. Also replacing all the switches. 10 gig switches are coming down in price, but they are not still as they're still expensive compared to 2.5G 2.5G switches. Sorry, and then again, and also you have to upgrade your computers. Now these adapters, we have multiple adapters, right? We have these two adapters, and we also have the 5G adapter. Now the price is actually to 5G is much cheaper than these adapters. So the cost of upgrading from 1G to 2.5G is much cheaper than cost of upgrading to 1G to all the way to 10G. Replacing everything is, again, you have to incur that cost. So it's easy for us to provide that 2.5G option as a built-in option in replacing that 1G. So you still can't use 1G because that 2.5G can go down to 1G. But you do have the option in the future, if you want to upgrade to 2.5G, you can always do that. Now, not everyone wants to use their NAS for video editing, right? We have a lot of NAS that are actually using it just as a file server, as a backup option. 1G is already more than enough for them because we haven't seen them saturating that 1G port. But upgrading them to 2.5G again just gives you that better option. So that's the reason that 2.5G is going to be more and more coming out in the future. But also a lot of other manufacturers also considering a 2.5G switch as well. Intel is also pushing that 2.5G solution as well. So we're just getting ahead of the curve and then making sure you guys have the option as well. And another question is there an advantage of running two 40G Ethernet or two Thunderbolt 3 or 4 cables with the same Mac in regards to Final Cut Pro? No, I wouldn't say you can. I wouldn't recommend. I don't see a scenario where you're going to be saturating a single Thunderbolt 3 port, but connecting two Thunderbolt 3 port, I don't think is supported as of yet on the same Mac. It's only one going to one Mac and the other going to the other Mac. But 40G on a Mac computer, I don't see an option right now. But if you do have the option, we do have port trunking, so you can actually get theoretical 80 gig connection if you wanted to. But I don't see you saturating that many high-speed connection unless you have a 2490, which is an all-flash NAS device. You may be able to get that as well. Yeah, again, Andrew brings up another point as well. Limitation of cable distancing can be issued with Thunderbolt ports. So 40G is, again, gives you higher distances as well. All right, so moving on. So next we're gonna go through just some setup options for video editors, or what is best recommended for video editing when you want to set up. Let me open up a QFinder. So this is just a step-by-step guide, or just a brief overview of how to set up your storage when setting up the NAS, setting up storage pool, as well as setting up shared folder to your computer. So as soon as the QFinder opens up, we can still get started. This Mac is working so awesome today.
That's the great thing of doing this live. Sometimes we have our little hiccups, but
so we have two options for you guys. We're gonna go through first. We're gonna go through our QTS operating system, which most of the NAS are coming up with, and then we also have a QTS Hero that I'm gonna also touch base on how to set that up as well. So first, QTS NAS. So let me log into it right now. All right, so QTS NAS, QTS NAS, if you want to set up anything regarding storage and snapshot, you have to visit storage and snapshot. So you're going to open up that and then go to visit storage/snapshot right here. Now this NAS supports M.2 SSDs. I have installed M.2s, Seagate M.2s right here, Iron Wolf, and I have Seagate hard drives as well and Seagate SSDs as well. So I already have set up storage pool for this demo. But I'm going to just go through some steps on how to set up a storage pool. To set up storage pool, you have to visit create and new storage pool. Now storage pool is, again, as you may know, that storage pool is just grouping up all these drives into one single large drive consisting of RAID. So you're going to be creating a RAID platform for redundancy. And then once you select your storage, once you select all the drives, it'll give you one large hard drive. And then you can create volumes, which is basically partitions where you're going to store your data within. Okay. Now, when you create storage pool, you can enable auto QTiering. QTiering allows you to what QTiering is. QTiering is QNAP's way to manage SSDs and hard drives together. So if you have a single storage pool where you have SSDs and hard drives, and you have a mix of these drives, QNAP, when you do auto tiering or when you do QTiering, QNAP will put your most used data, or what is also called as hot data, into SSD drives, and then your least used data, or the data you do not use a lot, that will be stored within the hard drive. And this is all done automatically, so you don't need to create a volume for SSDs and volume for hard drives, right? Before QTiering, we have a lot of users. They actually had to create different volumes, one for SSDs, one for hard drive, and they had to manually copy data over. The data they use a lot, they're gonna put that in SSD. Then data they're mostly for archiving purposes, they put that in hard drives. With QTiering, QNAP takes care of that for you. So if you have that, you're gonna select that, and then select next. You're gonna select the hard drives, and you have different RAID types. We support RAID types from single all the way to RAID 60. For devices that are like 4 bay and above, 4 bay and 6 bay, you can get away with RAID 5, which gives you a better, which gives you some kind of redundancy, like one drive redundancy, and also gives you a better performance as well. But and also gives you a better performance as well. If you do want more redundancy, you can always go with RAID 6. It does give you high disk failure rates, because you can have up to 2 disks that you can actually lose, and you still can have your data. But it also gives you better read performance as well. For anything above 6 bays, you can always go with RAID 10. RAID 10 gives you a great performance. Again, better for write performance as well. But the drawback with RAID 10 is you're gonna cut your storage into half. So if you have an 8 disk RAID, so you can only store data on up to 4 disks. The rest of the 4 disks is for redundancy. You can actually theoretically lose up to 4 drives at the same time, provided then in the same RAID groups, because the QNAP will group them. The group 1, disk 1 and 2 in RAID 1, disk 2 and 3 on RAID 3 and 4 on another RAID group, and 5 and 6. So you can actually lose 1 drive from each RAID group, and it combines all these RAIDs into one in RAID 10. Great for performance, but again, your storage cuts in half. Now, if you so you can always go with RAID 6 for 8 drive system. For higher capacity or higher disk number of disk storage systems, like 12 bay, 16 bay, you can also look into RAID 50 and RAID 60. Those are great for high capacity units as well, which you can combine 2 RAID 5s into a single RAID group. You can actually have 2 drive redundancy, and for RAID 60 you can actually have 4 drive redundancy. Again, gives you great performance, as well as an option for more redundant drives as well. So once you select your drives, you're going to select hot spare if you wanted to. Hot spare just basically gives you the ability. So you're going to save one of the disks as so one of the disks won't be used in your RAID group. That just be a spare. So if one of the drive goes bad, that can immediately replace that with a spare disk. So you don't need to come at the NAS to replace the drive. QNAP will do that automatically. And when you come back to your NAS in the future, or let's say in a few days we visit your NAS, you can replace that bad disk. So again, if you're not at your NAS often, you want to have your spare disk. So again, the QNAP can replace it instead of you waiting for coming at the NAS and replacing the disk yourself. Once you select that, basically that is it. Or if you have SSDs, you want to do SSD provisioning. We have SSD provisioning tool. on how much you want to select. You just start with 10%. That's a great great tool to start, but the tool can give you better information how much you want to reserve. Once you have done that, hit next and hit finish, and that is how easy it is to create a storage pool. Now once you create the storage pool, you want to create a volume. This is where you're going to create this is where you're going to be storing your data. So create a volume. You have multiple options of creating volume: static volume, thick volume, and thin volume. Static volume, again, if you don't want to create storage pool and you want to have a volume directly on your hard drive, you can actually create static volume directly on the hard drive. The advantage is the best performance out of all the drives. It's the best performance of all three volumes. But again, the drawback is you cannot use snapshots, and you cannot create multiple volumes because you don't have storage pool, so you can't create multiple volumes beneath that. So, and you cannot have QTiering as well. So those features, you're gonna lose that features. But with thick and thin volume, you do have ability to get snapshots. You can create multiple volumes. You can use QTiering. So we recommend thick and thin volume with storage pool. Now for video editing, we recommend thick volume because that gives you better performance compared to thin, because with thick volume, it immediately takes away the space and allocates from the storage pool. So if you have a storage pool for 10 terabyte, and let's say for your example, you ask the QNAP to create a volume so this storage pool is about 14 terabytes right now. So if I ask the QNAP to create an 8 terabyte storage pool, volume, QNAP will take away 8 terabytes from that 14 terabyte, and you're gonna be left with 6 terabytes. So, but because it allocates that immediately and it takes away. The advantage of having that is because the QNAP doesn't have to look for free space. With thin volume, when you select thin volume, you can actually specify how much you want to start with. You can actually say, I want to have an 8 terabyte stored thin volume, but QNAP will only allocate certain space. And as and when you keep adding more data, QNAP will keep expanding that into higher and higher space. The advantage, the reasons for these, the advantage of having that, you can actually create a larger storage pool. Actually create a 120 terabyte of storage pool, but you cannot actually use it because you don't have physical space. But in the future, if you plan to add expansion base, you can actually start with 120 terabyte, and you can actually add that into like actually add expansion and actually go to that 120 terabyte. But again, it's only for users like database applications or virtualization. Those may use thin volumes, but for video editing, we recommend thick volume. So once you select thick volume, select the space you want, and then under advanced settings, you can set up encryption. So if you want to do encryption, more security for your files, you can do encryption. You can enter a new password that you want, and then if you do save the encryption key, what this does is that when you reboot the NAS, QNAP will automatically unlock the volume if you check this box. If you do not check this box, when you reboot the NAS, the QNAP will not unlock the volume for you. You have to actually come to your NAS and unlock it. Okay, so you have to make sure you remember this. So check. So this is, again, if you don't check this, it's a great security method. So in case if somebody steals your NAS, they'll have to reboot, right? So once you boot up the NAS, they won't have access to your data because it's encrypted. Exactly. But if you do check this box, as soon as they plug in power, they'll be able to get access to your data. The only reason that now there is some protection if you do encryption. So let's say if somebody steals just your hard drive, not your NAS, and they put it onto another QNAP NAS, they won't get access to your data because they need to enter password. So just a quick tip right here, just make sure you do save this information on multiple places, because if you do lose the password, there's no backdoor way. So there's a way that's encryption right here. If you do plan to use higher capacity NASs, and you think you're going to reach 250 terabyte, make sure you do select 64-bit inode, and then hit next. Basically, that is how easy it is to create a storage pool and volume on QTS NAS. Okay.
Let's see. Do you have any questions? Feel free to add your questions in the chat. If you have any questions throughout the workshop, you can either chat it to us, or you can welcome you to unmute yourself as well, and you can ask us a question. Let's see, Andrew had a question. How much of this can change update after it's been set up?
Yeah, great question. So with QNAP storage pool, you can actually expand the storage pool by adding. So certain rates like rate 5, rate 6, rate 50, rate 60 can allow you to add additional disk into QTier NAS. So only on this operating system you can actually add a new disk. You can create a new RAID group, or you can actually add disk to an existing RAID group. And then once you select that, you can actually add more disk. I don't have an additional disk right here, so it doesn't show that. So you can actually add more disk. Now, the only exception is RAID 10, RAID 1, RAID 0. Those don't allow you to add additional disk. So you cannot add, so you have to delete the whole storage pool and create a new storage pool. But with RAID 5, RAID 6, RAID 50, RAID 60, you can actually add additional disk. So you can actually, if you have an 8-bay NAS and you only have budget for adding a 4 hard drive right now, you can actually create a 4 hard drive RAID 5. And in the future, you can actually keep adding additional disk as and when you buy more disk, or you want to add more disk to your RAID or expand capacity, you can keep adding more disk.
Okay, another question. What about changing from static to thick?
Static, oh no, you can't change that. That's something, because it's a whole, you have to actually create a storage pool, so you need free disks. So you cannot change from static to thick. But so changes, like as I mentioned, you can actually expand your RAID. You can actually increase the capacity for your volume. Let's say if you have a 9 terabyte, but you have a storage pool of a larger disk, you can actually do resize the volume. You can actually add more space in the future as well. So you can do that as well with QNAP NAS. So can you add existing RAID group with an expansion? So with QTier NAS, it'll be another. So you can actually expand the storage pool by going here and go to manage. So if you do add expansion to your NAS, now only certain expansions allow you to do this, right? We have the SAS expansion that's the only expansion actually that allows you to do this right now. For any other the USB expansions that we have, the SATA expansions that we have, unfortunately, there's no way to expand your RAID. So you have to actually create a new storage pool. You cannot expand the RAID. But for SAS expansions, you can click on expand pool, and you can actually create a new RAID group that will be added into that existing RAID group, and the whole expansion will be another RAID group now. But it will give you the capacity, the total capacity will be the total capacity of the NAS storage as well as the expansion storage.
Here's another question. QTier Hero has limitations of not adding to your storage pool.
Again, similar concept on QTier Hero as well. Only storage pools, only the SAS expansions are allowed to add additional RAID group. But I think I think what Andrew mentions is that he's correct about one part, is QTier Hero doesn't allow you to add additional disk into a storage pool. So like QTier NAS, you can add additional disk in RAID 5, RAID 6, RAID 60, RAID 50, and RAID 60. QTier doesn't allow you to do that. QTier Hero doesn't allow you to add additional disks. You have to select how many disks you want initially, and that's only. But that's coming up in the next part right here. So I'm going to move on to QTier Hero NAS right here. So QTier Hero, again, similar concept, go to storage and snapshot, and so it's snapshot. Now, there's certain differences between QTier and QTier Hero. So right here, if you want to create a new storage pool, you can go to create new storage pool. You're going to select all the disks. There's no support for QTiering on this QTier Hero NAS. Unfortunately, right now, as of today, there's no way to create new storage QNAP QTier with Hero models. Once you select the RAID, once you select all the disks, you do have the option of similar RAID groups. So you have RAID 5 to RAID 60, but we do have RAID TP and RAID triple mirror, basically RAID 7. So you actually have up to 3 drive redundancy. You can actually select that as well. Once you select your RAID group, you select next. I just don't have enough memory right here. It's a small model, so I'm gonna ignore that error. You can optimize performance. This optimizes performance. It just checks your RAID. QTier already does that. When you create RAID group, it actually does that in the background. And in QNAP NAS, in QTier Hero, you can select optimize. It will go to optimization. Or you can do over provisioning. You can actually guarantee snapshots. So if you want to do snapshot protection, you can actually take away 20% or 15% or 10% depending on usage. And then you can do alert threshold. Once you select that option, hit next, and it will create that storage pool. So that's how simple it is to create a storage pool. Now the major difference with QTS Hero and QTS NAS is there's no volume per se. So you actually create a shared folder. So if you want to create a shared folder on QTS NAS, you actually have to visit. You actually have to have volume, and then under once you create the volume, you visit shared folder and create a new shared folder, and you select which volume that shared folder resides. But with QTS Hero, you actually you create a shared folder directly on the storage pool, and then you select that, hit start, and then you select the folder name you want it to. So I'm going to put video editing right here. And if you have multiple storage pools, you can select which storage pool you want to create this. And then you have the option of thick and thin provisioning. The concept remains the same. For video editors, we recommend thick provisioning again, and then select the size. So how large that shared folder would be. It's basically the volume you're creating, but it's actually a shared folder. And then you can select encryption right here as well. And similar concept with encryption. Once you select that, you can do with QTS Hero, you do have the option of doing compression and deduplication. For video editing, compression may have a great advantage because you do have a lot of raw files. So compression can save a lot of space on your NAS and doesn't hit that much performance on your NAS as well. But with deduplication, it looks for your duplicated file. You need a NAS with a lot of memory. 32 gigs and above is what's recommended. So we recommend a lot of higher memory. But with video editors, I don't see a deduplication giving you that of an advantage because you don't have much duplicated files to start with to take advantage of that. This is basically for virtualization applications. We recommend that. So you can do that as well. And then for performance, another important part is performance. You want to select 128K for video editors. That gives you the best performance. And you do have the option to do more, which is read once, write many. So once you put anything within that folder, you can only read that. You cannot write anything, or you cannot make any changes unless this log delay, which is the retention policy and log delay ends. So you do have the option doing warm as well.
Looks like Abbas had another question here. Would compression potentially hinder video quality when working with raw files?
So there's compression options right here. So yeah, there is some hit with performance quality as well. Sorry, not quality of raw files, but when using compression. So yes. And so once you select all that options, select next. You can put permissions right here. And then for SMB, you can do properties like ops lock or hide network drives. So all these and everything of it is available on QTS NAS. It's just on a different section right here, under SMB section right here under advanced options. You can do all of that right here as well. And then you can also do under shared folder. You have the other options right here as well. You can hide network drives. You can ops lock, SMB encryption. You can do all of that right here. It's just on a different section of the NAS. On QTS here, this gives you the option of doing everything here. And if you want to do this for time machine backup, you can also set this folder as time machine backup as well. Or QNAP will create a hidden folder within your NAS for time machine backup if you don't want to select, or if you do not want to have a specific folder for time machine. So that's how. Once you've done that, hit next, and that is it. That's basically how easy it is to create a shared folder. The only thing you have to remember with QTS NAS or Hero NAS is a performance block, and if you want to use compression or not. So once you have done that, select. That is it. So cancel right here. I'm just we already have some shared folders right here. The second part I'm going to go before we move on to caching is actually before actually we can just start with the next subject. So tutoring versus caching. Now before I move on, I'm gonna stop for a couple of minutes if you have any questions so far.
If you have any questions, again, we welcome you. Please add them to the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you do?
Which PC?
No, that's for after the break. All right, so let's move on. So next option we're going to go through is QTier versus caching. Let me explain the differences between QTier and caching. So QNAP, if you have a NAS with SSDs and HDD, you have two options, at least for QTS NAS. For QTier, I'm going to discuss that later. For QTS NAS, you do have the option of using the SSDs as QTier or caching.
So what's the advantage of either?
Yeah. So QTier again, you can actually, so when you use the SSDs for QTier, it actually uses the SSD as part of your storage, and you can actually store data permanently within the SSDs. Whereas caching, it only stores it as temporary. So when you actually start using the data on the NAS, the QTier will, sorry, the SSD caching will put that data in the SSDs, and then once you're done with using that data, it's going to put that data back into the hard drives. But with QTier, once you start using the data, it's going to move that data into SSDs, and it's going to keep that data into SSD even when after you reboot or you stop using the data for a few minutes. It's going to keep that data into SSD drives, and then once the QNAP knows, okay, you start using a new data, it's going to replace that data it's going to put that data back into HDD. It's going to put that new data into SSDs. But the important part is that SSDs is part of the storage pool in QTier, but for SSDs, it's just a temporary storage, basically. So the difference, okay, that's the difference between QTier and SSDs. But the main question comes is, when should you use SSDs or SSD caching, and when should you use QTier?
Right.
Now, if you do, so let's say for example, if you're working on a project for a longer period of time, and it's going to fit into your SSD drives. So let's say if you have a project, a video editing project that's for 1 terabyte, right? And you do have a 1 terabyte SSD, the SSD drives, which is work. So right here, I already have a QTier, right? So I'm gonna go to QTier. I'm gonna go to manage QTier. So right here, I have 2 RAID groups, one for hard drive and one for SSD. So I have tier 3, which is the capacity drive, and then ultra high speed, which is the SSD drives, and high speed is SAS drives. So the SAS drives also can be part of it. You actually have 3 tiers: SSD tier, which is ultra high speed, the SAS tier, which is high speed, and then capacity, which is your regular hard drives, SATA hard drives. So right here, I have a SSD, I have a RAID 5, which is consisting of 3 SSD drives. Each of them are a 1.75 terabyte. It's a Seagate Ironwolf drive. So it's about a 2 terabyte or 2 terabytes drive, and it's on my QTier. So my QTier is up to so my capacity for my SSDs is 3 terabytes, and the capacity for my hard drives are about 21 terabytes or 22 terabytes. So let's say, for example, if you're working on a project, a video editing project, and then that you're gonna think that project's gonna take a few days, and it's within the 3 terabyte limitation. What you can actually do is you can actually use QTier, and then when you're actually working on the project, all that data within that that you're working on, the whole video editing project should be residing within the SSD tier. So you don't need to manually move that. And then even after you restart after you reboot, let's say you're working on a few days, right? You're not working 24 hours, right? You're gonna stop working on that project and you're working the next day. So you don't have to worry about the data going back to the hard drives. It's gonna stay in the SSD tier as long as you're working on the project. So after a few days, maybe 10 days or a week or so, you're done with the project and you're gonna start working on the next project. What QNAP will do is QNAP will see, okay, you're done with this particular project, you're actually starting another project. It's gonna start moving blocks from the other project into the SSD. And the blocks that you have on the ultra high speed tier on the SSD drives that you've done with, you're gonna start putting that back into hard drives. So automatically, the QNAP will start putting data into SSDs, and it's gonna move the project that you're done with. It's gonna put that back into hard drives. So this is a great advantage if you're working on projects for a longer period of time, and you're gonna work on the same project for many days. Okay, and then because you don't have to worry about the data going back to your hard drives. But if you're working on a lot of random projects, so especially smaller video editing projects or smaller photo editing projects, a lot of these smaller projects that and then you're just working on a few hours and you're done with, you can start with the next project. You're done with in an hour or so, you can start with the next project. Again, again, a lot of random data that you move around. SSD caching is a great option for you, because what SSD caching will do is it's going to start moving the blocks that you're actually using right now into SSDs, and then once you're done with, it's going to immediately replace that back into hard drive and going to move the next project into SSDs, and that happens instantly. It's going to flush data back into hard drives, and then when you reboot the NAS, it's going to flush the data back into your hard drive, and then once you reboot the NAS, you have fresh SSD with no data in it. And as soon as you start working on something, it's going to start immediately put that data into SSD. So again, QTiering is beneficial for users going to use the same data over and over again for few days for same projects, basically. And for SSDs, a lot of users, it's beneficial for users who use a lot of random data and they only work on a few hours at a time and they finish it. And another difference is with QTier, you can actually see higher capacity because it's going to combine your SSD drives and your hard drives into one large storage. But when you do SSD caching, it's not part of your storage pool. So the capacity is only for your hard drive capacity. The SSD caching is gonna just be again, it's just like RAM. It's only for temporary storage. It's not gonna use for permanent storage. All right. So that's the major difference with QTier. Let's go to manage QTier. This is how you can manage a QTier device. You can actually go. You're gonna see what data is stored right here. How much capacity is being used on your ultra high speed. You can see how much capacity is actually being used on your hard drive. So, and then what's your RAID group right here. So you can go to statistics to see what your usage are, how much data is being moved up and down. So again, and you can also go, you can also do by past month. You can also do for all tiers. So this is just a logging tool for you. We can also do QTier by demand. So QTier by demand, again, is a great tool that QNAP introduced, which allows you to manage certain folders that QTier will use. So because QNAP has a lot of folders, many users use QNAP for multiple purposes. They use it for file sharing, they use it for backup, they use it for multiple purposes, right? So so you don't want all your data being used up in SSDs. So you only want certain data is being used up on your SSD. So like backup data, you don't want to be used. If you're using your NAS for backups, you don't want to use that for SSD for QTiering, right? It's just useless data that's being used up for SSD. So for data that you don't want to reside on SSD at all, QNAP will just ignore that into SSD and will keep that data into hard drives all the time. So if you disable them for auto QTiering, QNAP will not put that data into SSD at all. That data will always reside into hard drives. And then so my editing file, of course, for editing, I want to make sure that I can use SSDs for my advantage. So I want to enable that into SSD. So this is a great tool that you can actually control what goes into SSDs and what stays in your hard drives. So for the data that you don't care to be shifted to SSDs, make sure that data is off right here. Those folders are off. And this is a great tool you can use for. This is another tip right here. Create multiple folders for different types of data. For backup, create another folder. For video editing, create another folder. For your multimedia like Plex server, create another folder. Again, Plex, like if you're using it for Plex, you don't need SSDs for at all. The Plex won't use any. I've rarely seen advantage of having SSDs caching for Plex. So I won't use Plex for that as well. For video streaming, no Plex. For video streaming, don't use it for backups. For file sharing as well, you may be able to get advantage, but again, you can enable it. If you do see advantage differences, you can keep it enabled. If not, then disable it. So again, create multiple folders for different types of data. And here you can actually disable them for purposes that you don't use, that you don't need to move the SSDs. Okay, so again, great tool right here. You can also do tiering schedules. This is where you're gonna move data across. QNAP will, if you do automatic, QNAP will automatically select the time where your NAS is not used a lot, and it's gonna start moving data between hard drives and SSDs. Or you can do manually. You can also control your schedule right here as well, at what times you want to start moving data across. Right. So that's how easy it is to control QTiering. So that's about QTiering right here. When you do QTiering, also when you create a new shared folder, you do have the option to enable QTiering. This is just turning on QTiering for that folder. You can also disable, enable right here as well under shared folders. So we have a question here: with QTiering, are you able to tell if a particular file or files resides on SSD? Unfortunately, no. You cannot know which file is there or which blocks. This is blocks of data. It's not actually a file, it's just blocks of data that's in SSD and hard drive. It doesn't. There's no way to see which blocks of data are in SSDs or hard drives. You can only see what your usage is, but not a particular file. So that is for SSD. For QTiering, we're gonna move on to SSD caching. So with SSD caching, as I mentioned, when you create SSD caching, especially for, it's very simple to do SSD caching on QNAP. Just go to cache acceleration, select next, select your disk for SSD caching, and right here, cache type, you can select read only, read write, or write only. So if you think your video editing data is going to use read and write cache, then you want to do read and write only. Or if you just want to, we've seen certain users who get more advantage having read only caching. So then you can just do read only. So it's going to put that data, the project into SSDs, and you can start reading. So it can start when you especially when you try to move across the video files to see what you're going to edit. You want to make sure you have that data into SSD. So when you're moving across in Final Cut Pro or Adobe, you're moving across to see what data is in there. If that data is in SSD, you can actually, it won't buffer basically. When you try to play back something, it's not going to buffer.
Augustine had a quick question here. Will QTier move files that are opened by many users, or will it move based on bandwidth demand for users? It'll actually follow an algorithm of the data that you use the most and put it on your SSD drives. So what it does is, like your data that you don't use often, it'll put it in as cold data. Your data stuff like projects that you're working on that you have multiple users that are accessing, it'll put it on the SSD drive. So it's an algorithm that follows that it follows. Another question here is, can you specify an extension, I guess an extension for automatic being upgraded to SSD tier when open? Can you specify an extension for automatic, I guess automatic? I don't understand that.
I may understand what you're trying to say, but Augustine, we've got to mention that you can always unmute yourself. You can always ask questions. We recommend that as well, so it's more conversation time. It's more easy for us to answer as well. So you can always unmute yourself if you have any questions, and we can always answer them as well.
Yeah, Augustine, if you don't mind unmuting yourself for that question.
Do you hear me, Panara?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry for spamming in the chat. I apologize, but I didn't want it to interrupt. So it's very interesting what you're mentioning about the video editing, and I actually have a question regarding how is QNAP doing the tiering, the automatic tiering between SSDs and the mechanic disks. Okay, so there are two kind of workflows in video editing that I'm very used to, and one is working with very large files, and the other one is working with DPX files, which is actually when accessing a recording, the media actually is not a single huge file, but it's actually a bunch of very small files, like 64 megabytes or something like that. So basically what I want to understand is for the case of very large files, so if QNAP would recognize that I am a video editing user and everything that I need every asset that I need it on the SSD tier. So
Mhm.
QNAP automatically moves that files or that type of files to the SSD tier.
So yeah, it's a great question again. So it actually, for a simple explanation, I was going through a project, but if you want to go in detail, the way SSD, the way QTier works is actually blocks of data. So QNAP will look at what block of data you're actually using right now, and it's going to put that data, and it's going to continue. The algorithm will see which block of data you're actually using a lot, and that block of data is going to put that into SSD caching. So if you have if that video file, if that video file again, that video file is blocks of data across your hard drive, right? And so if you're using that block of data of that same file a lot, it's going to put that, it should be able to put that whole file into SSD tiering, provided you have enough space. So let's say if you have as I mentioned, my QTier had 3 terabyte space. So if that video file is less than 2 terabytes, it's going to be able to fit that into SSD tier, and it's going to move that whole block of data. But it's going to see what block of data you're actually using a lot. It's going to keep that data into SSD tier basically. So hopefully that answered your
Okay.
question.
And
Yes?
will it recognize if I'm editing a timeline, okay, which it
Mm-hmm.
may be like an hour project, okay? Will it detect that maybe I'm first editing the first 15 minutes, then I'm editing the second 10 minutes, and so on across the timeline? Will QNAP detect that, hey, this user is accessing all these blocks from the same file, so let's move the file?
So yeah, so okay. So again, another difference with SSD. So you bring up a great point. So another major difference is when you start using SSD tiering, the initial performance may be a little bit slower because if the data is stored within the hard drive, QNAP will, when you start using the data, QNAP will say, okay, you started using the data. It's gonna now on the next schedule is gonna move that data into SSD tier. So the next time you want to access the file, that's where you're gonna be seeing a more benefit. But so yeah, again, the next time you're going to access the file, you're going to see more benefits because that's where the data is now moved to SSD tier. And then so that is the reason I mentioned that if you're using that same file over and over again for many days, that is where it's going to be beneficial. Now in your example, if let's say if you just stream the file right now, and then you're not going to stream the next 15 minutes at all, right? So at that point, it may not be beneficial for you. SSD caching, which is I'm going to show you right now, is going to be more beneficial because that's where it's going to immediately move that data over to SSD. And then once you're done with that data, it's going to move that back into hard drive. But if let's say if you have that an hour of file they're going to be using for next few days over and over and over again, then QTier would be more beneficial because the more you use that file, the more faster it's going to get because the whole data will not move to SSD.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect. So so yeah, that Augustine brings up great point. So uh, initially, if the drive is when you copy something into QNAP, when you have QTier, it's gonna always copy to SSD. It's gonna then move that data into hard drive. So writing data is always gonna be beneficial because it's always gonna go through SSD. So write performance is always gonna be better with QTier. But when read performance, if you have data that is stored within the hard drive, the first time you access the data, it's gonna be slow because the data is residing on the hard drive. Then QTier will know, okay, you're gonna start using this data, right? Then it's going to start moving that data into SSD tier. So the next time and the next time and next time you're going to access that data is going to give you better performance because now you're going to be using the data over and over again. QNAP will put that data into SSD tier. So again, that's very important to understand. Use QTier if you can only if you're thinking you're going to use that file for a few days rather than randomly. For random, it's always going to be SSD caching that's beneficial for you. Okay, so moving on. So with SSD caching, again, that's the next part. So again, you do have the option of setting up read only, read write cache, and write only. For read only, we recommend you can go with RAID 0 because again, there's no you can go with RAID 1, but again, read only, even if you lose the whole SSDs or if you lose the whole SSD caching or something that went wrong with your SSD drive, the data is not going to be corrupted because the data is stored within the hard drive. It's just reading that data temporarily. But if you do read and write cache, you want to always have some redundancy, because let's say if you do RAID 0 with write cache, and if you lose one of the M.2s, right here I have two M.2s, right? If I lose one of the M.2s, the data that's stored within the M.2s for caching, that cached data, that may get corrupted. And I've also seen it comes down to hard drive and corrupt that particular file that you opened up, because it's going to move that data into SSDs temporarily, right? So if you have only part of the files that you moved into SSDs and that whole part is gone because you have write cache, that the whole file may get corrupted. So make sure you always, when you do any kind of write cache, make sure you do RAID 1. So you have, even if you lose one drive, you have at least backup of that write cache data in your SSDs. So once you have done that, once you've selected that, now your options, you can select next. You can do over provisioning. Again, 10% is what we start with again, but you can go with more if you wanted to, depending upon your SSD profiling tool. But another important note to remember is, for video editors, is all IO is beneficial, because that's where you're going to get maximum performance for video editing. So all IO is recommended for video editors. Once you have selected that, advanced settings is nothing much for advanced settings. For cache replacement policy, again, it's least recently used or first in first out. For video editors, we recommend least recently used. So the data you actually use a lot, it's always going to be kept in SSDs rather than first in first out, which may be beneficial for virtualization or other applications. But for least recently used is great for video editors. So make sure you have all IO and least recently used. Once you selected that, hit next, and then it's only volume based. So you have to select the volume that you want to cache that into your NAS, and then hit next, and it's going to start creating SSD caching right here. Okay, so that's SSD caching for QNAP QTS. For SSD caching for Hero, it's similar. Again, under cache acceleration, select add, hit start, and again you select the disks that you want. And with QTS Hero, you have read cache and ZIL synchronized IO write log. It's not actually a write caching, it's only the write logging that it does. So it's not actually moving write cache data into SSDs. It's only doing write logging. You can read up on this more, but on a great example of what exactly that is. But it's not actually a write cache. It's only read cache that's beneficial. So for QTier, we recommend read cache. Once you've done the caching, you can select which folder you want to cache. So in QTier, because there's no volume, actually you always have shared folder. You can select which folder you want to cache. Just like previous example on QTier, you want to only cache certain folders that you want to put that into SSD. Once you selected that, hit next. Again, same feature right here, all IO for SSD caching. Hit next, and once you have done that, it's going to create cache. So that is SSD caching for you guys for QTS Hero. Simple. Yeah, and that is it. For next part is Q&A.
All right. If you have any other questions, please feel free to chat them away, or if you're going to leave yourself as well.
Yes, go ahead.
Panara, this is Agustin again. I apologize for shooting so many questions. So two quick ones. When you are doing the cache to the SSD tier, are the files actually moved to the SSDs, or does the original copy remains on the HDDs? And the second question is, when you were just configuring the cache, you have the possibility of the cache the cache access. You set it up to read only on the next screen. You cache it. You configure to read only.
Right here, right?
Yes. If you configure it into read only, any modifications will go to the version that it's on the magnetic drives.
Yeah. So yes, exactly. Any changes you do is always going to go through that magnetic drive. So it's not going to move your data into read. It's not going to move your data into SSDs. It's actually just a copy of the data into SSD. Actually, when you do any kind of small editing session, it's always going to go through. Um, always going to go um, through the magnetic drive. But with video editing, you want to make sure you have all the data into SSD so you can actually buffer across, or you want to actually move across all the data so you can actually read it faster. Editing doesn't take that much bandwidth, so we can actually do read-only caching, and all the small writes can go directly onto hard drives. But if you do read and write cache, it's going to actually move that data into SSD. So it's going to move that data into SSD. So that is the reason you want to have some kind of redundancy. If you lose that data, it may corrupt that data into. It may corrupt the data. It may corrupt the file going down to. Sorry, it may corrupt that particular file if you lose that drive.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. About another question is in QTier, which cache method is better, suggested, or preferred? We recommend read cache for QTier for video editing. That will give you better performance for video editing.
All right. Any other questions then?
Okay, 7216. Andrew, another question. Any possibility of changing the OS location after QTier? Unfortunately, no. Once you have set up QTier, there's no way to move the data or your initial volume. I'm sorry, going back here, your location of the operating system after it's being set up. So you have to make sure you plan your initial setup accordingly with QTier NAS. So once you have set up, it's a system fault. Once you set up, it's gonna be going back. It's gonna do it.
Let's see, any other questions before we move on to the next part? Please feel free to, again, chat your questions, or you can unmute yourself and ask your questions.
You have to share your screen too. Oh, we have questions actually. Oh, I understand. I'll take that. I'll take that recommendation, and I'll see if there is any way we can improve that, Andrew. Thank you for your feedback on that one. Actually, there is multiple feedbacks on that, and I think they're working on something, but I'll keep you posted on that. We will have an update on that as well. And one more question before we move on: is it possible snapshot used in a specific folder? Yes, there is a way to do snapshot in a specific folder. We're going to hold on to that question right now because Eric is sharing his screen. So once I start sharing my screen again, I'm going to show that specific. It's a great question. I'm going to show that once we go back to the session on my end. Okay, so hold on to that question. I'm going to show that in a few minutes. All right, you can go ahead now.
All right. All right, so we're getting, we'll move into part 3 again. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to go ahead and just either you can chat it or you can unmute yourself. So part 3, we'll get into learn how hybrid backup sync and automate syncing with your external drives. So what is hybrid backup sync? Hybrid backup sync is QNAP's kind of all-in-one shop application where you can back up, you can synchronize, and you can also recover your data. So whenever you want to back up to a cloud, you want to back up to external drive, or you want to back up to another secondary NAS, you can do so with this with hybrid backup sync. So we're gonna do a quick demo here of how to back up your data to an external drive, or how to pretty much give you a quick overview of hybrid backup sync. So first thing you would do, hybrid backup sync is not it's not a standard app. You would need to first download it from the App Store. I'm sorry, the App Center. So first you would need to go to the QNAP App Center here, and you could download hybrid backup sync. So again, it gives you, you can build your 3-2-1 strategy here for your backup. You can have, again, you can backup, you can restore, you can synchronize, shows you, where your jobs are. So what we're going to do today is just do a quick run through. We want to do to back up to an external, right?
Yeah.
So what we would do is create a backup. So you would go to backup and restore. So new backup job. So here you would find your source folder. Yeah, that's where now it pops up. Okay, so sorry, I had a little resolution issue there. So source folder is what exactly you want to back up. So for the sake of the demo, we'll do, we're going to back up our editing files. So click on that. You would click on next. Here you would have your destination storage. So just to give you a quick run through, you could back up to your cloud. If you have different cloud accounts, you can choose them here. We're compatible with about 30 different cloud providers here. So if you have a cloud account, you can also back up here. But for the sake of the demo, we're gonna.
No, before we move on, I'm gonna give you a small tip right here as well. The reason that we have, okay, HBS3 is a great tool, again, as Eric was mentioning, about having to do backups onto it, especially when you have your work projects. You want to make sure you have a copy of it on different locations. Eric is showing you how to do an external hard drive backup, right? But there's also, if you do want to take leverage of cloud as well, you can do backup of your cloud, of your data into cloud as well. And then if you scroll down a little bit, now we do have multiple options for your cloud backup. Scroll down a bit. No, go above. So as mentioned, you have all these lists, but I'm going to give you an example of Amazon Glacier and Amazon S3. The reason that so Amazon S3, if you have seen the pricing of Amazon S3, it's actually more expensive than Amazon Glacier, but you can actually take this advantage. So the reason I'm going through that is because if you have a lot of data that you want to make sure you have an archival data, basically that data you just back up once, and you're not going to read that only if in emergency cases, like if you lost your NAS, if you lost access to your data, if something drastically happened and you want to get access to data, then Amazon Glacier is the one you choose, because it gives you a lot. If you per gigabyte cost for Amazon Glacier is a lot cheaper than the most cloud services, because it's only for archival purposes. Now it's gonna, when you download data, it's gonna cost you a lot because it's not meant for downloading data that often. But the per gigabyte cost for storing the data over to the cloud is much cheaper compared to other services, because that's because it's for archival purposes as well. With HBS3, you can actually set up multiple backup jobs. So you can actually have a backup job going to external hard drive, just in case you have a copy of it. Just also, this allows you to do 3-2-1 backup strategy, right? You have a backup of you have an original copy of your NAS, one on your external hard drive, and one offsite, which is your Amazon Glacier or any other, or Black-based B2 as well. So with QNAP, you can actually create multiple backup jobs, and you can select like something like Amazon Glacier or Black-based B2, which has lower or very cheap per gigabyte cost, so you can do your archival backup. So in case, just keep that data backed up for a longer period of time, and just don't touch that data unless if you need for emergency cases as well. So that's another tip. You can actually create multiple backup jobs. You can also create one backup job for or Google Drive, so you can share that across to multiple users. Or you can do, actually that is for sync basically, but you can actually do one backup for Amazon S3, one backup for Glacier. So the data you use a lot, you can put that in S3. So because that's a lot cheaper to download data. And Glacier is only for archival purposes. Just keep putting data into that Glacier account. Just forget about it. Only if you wanted to have in emergency cases, you can download data back from Glacier. Okay, so just another tip.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Noel. So again, as the one mentioned, you have your different cloud options, but for what we want to do is back up to a local drive. We want to back up to an external drive or thumb drive if you want to do that. So click on local NAS. We're going to click select, and here we're going to click our destination folder. So we have external devices. It'll pop up here on the bottom. So we'll click on OK. Then we'll click go forward, and you can put a description. You can name your backup job, your backup, whatever you want to call it. You can customize it. You can add a little description. Click on next. You can also schedule your jobs. Here's a scheduler. You can schedule up to 30 different schedules. You can schedule up to 30 different schedules. You can also do run after. You can do no schedule. You can do an auto backup as well. So every time you connect the external device or external drive, it'll do an automatic backup. So we're going to do, well, we can do a scheduler just to show you here. So here you would pick your schedule. You can do it periodically, whatever period you want to do your backup. You can do it daily, you can do it weekly, monthly, or you can do it one time as well. For the sake of now, we'll just do no schedule. So you do backup now, click on next. Here you can enable your filters. If you have any rules or any filters, any kind of folders that you want to exclude, like you have like audio files that you don't want to exclude, or photos you just want strictly your video files, you can create rules here. You can do by exclude them by size, exclude them by modification date. Say if you have multiple copies of a certain file, but you want what date that copy was made. You can also, again, include or exclude the types of documents that you want to back up. You can do it by, say you want to include all just documents, or say you want to exclude. You want to exclude all of the above except for video files. You can do that here as well. Sorry, wrong window. I see. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm reading the messages as we go here. So you can create your own rules here for your filters of files that you want to back up. You can do that here. So you can also use QDedupe. So QDedupe, it uses the source side duplication process to reduce backup sizes and improve your transfer speeds. So it basically deduplicates any files that you have. So you have multiple files that you just want one copy of each file. It'll deduplicate the files, so it reduces space too as well. So you can dedupe here. Click on next. This will give you just a summary of your backup. You got your local NAS. You're backing up to your external drive, and you create your backup, and it's ready to roll. So pretty easy, just a couple of steps, and you can create your backup to a local drive. So just give you a quick run through as well. You can also synchronize. Say you want to synchronize to the cloud services that we saw earlier. You can do a one-way sync, two-way sync here as well. Really easy process. You just kind of do the same thing that I did for the external drive, but you pick your cloud account. You just make sure you set up your cloud account. Say you have Dropbox or Google Drive, whatever. It'll prompt you through. You just log in, and pretty much the same process that I did for the external drive as well. Here you would see if you have any jobs pending. We don't have any existing jobs, but it would show all the status of your jobs here in the job section if you have any synchronized jobs or backup jobs. Here's for time machine backup. You can do your time machine backups here. You can set up your time machine. And here it just kind of shows you your local NAS, how much storage space you have. So it's pretty easy. You can also recover your data as well. So if you want to restore data, you can go and find your backup, whatever you have backed up, restore your file, restore your files as well. So you want to restore from your cloud. If you want to restore your files on a local NAS that are on your NAS, you can restore your files here. So it's a one-stop shop, backup, synchronized, restore, all on hybrid backup sync here with the HBSC.
I want to go through one more options for, especially for photo editors or even for video editors, but when they copy data onto when they go to an out to an editing session and they copy or they save videos onto an SD card or take photos onto an SD card. There's a great tool that QNAP provides, and if you've seen in the front, there's a USB port and there's a button across it, right? That's called USB One Touch Copy button. So if you go down to the services second to last, and then go to USB One Touch Copy. So what this allows you to do is this allows you to have you can actually do smart import or USB One Touch Copy as well. So let's go to USB One Touch Copy and go to settings. So when let's say you go out to a video photos editing session or any just to take photos or videos, and then you copy that into an SD card and you come back to the NAS, you can plug the SD into an SD card reader and plug that back into your NAS. Actually, you know what? Let me share my screen. It's easy. Have a backup sync and then services right here and then USB One Touch Copy and USB One Touch Copy and then settings. Okay, so what you can do is you can actually select backup to NAS and then you can select you can actually add a directory or you can synchronize. So what happens is that when you add it directly, it's going to copy. As soon as you press the button, it's going to add it directly onto the NAS. So you have to select the folder that you have on the front. You have to plug in the USB port initially, select the DCIM folder, and then on the NAS you can select folder where you want to copy that into. Let's say you can copy that into edit files, and when you plug it in, you press and hold it, it's going to beep and it's going to put that data into. It's going to create a new folder within the edit files, and then once you create the folder, it's going to put that data that you copied into that into all the new editing session you have done. It's going to put that into that new folder, and it's going to stop. It's going to eject that particular data. So you can have the option to unmount it. That basically ejects it. Now you can also do synchronize as well. So synchronize is basically it's going to copy the data from the SD card into your NAS again. So there's a important note that data is copied from the source to the destination. Any duplicate destination will be overwritten with the source data. Any destination data that doesn't exist also in the source will be removed. So basically this is synchronization. So what it does is that let's say if you have 10 photos that you have taken, the first time is going to copy the 10 photos into the QNAP. Let's say if you edit 1 or 2 photos and you take new photos on your SD card and you plug that in, and if you do synchronize, it's going to replace that from the original one, and it's going to copy that data back into SD. It's going to also copy new data. What we recommend is copy, where it's going to just copy new data from the SD card into your QNAP. So you press and hold the front button. It's going to look at your new data that you have. It's going to put that data into that new folder, into the same exact folder. It's not going to create a new folder. It's going to copy that data. It's going to update that data by the new data they have taken. So if you're taking 10 photos yesterday, it's going to put that 10 photos, and you take 10 more photos today. It's going to copy the new 10 photos that you've taken into your QNAP. So again, no need to come to your NAS, no need to log into your computer, no need to do anything of that. Just take the SD card, plug it in, press and hold the USB port. It's going to beep. It's going to start copying. It's going to beep again. That means it's done. You can take it out and just go on your way. So no need to go to a computer, no need to log into anything at all. Just start using the data as soon as. That's how simple it is to use USB One Touch Copy button. I see a lot of questions coming in, but before we move on, before we move on to the questions, I'm gonna introduce Seagate, right? So I'm gonna hand it over to Seagate.
Hey, what's going on, boys? Can you guys hear me? First of all, I'm unmuted.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. And I need to get here. Did you unlock the share here?
Yes.
Yeah. So Reed's part of a Seagate sales team. He'll be discussing some of Seagate's latest drive portfolios, all the ideal drives for a video editing workflow. And we're going to hand it over to Reed Howard.
Here, let me get here and share. Looks like I'm unlocked. Let me make sure this comes up and everybody can see it. Let me start moving forward. So I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to speak in front of some of the preferred resellers and partners of QNAP. They are a great partner with us and one of our leading NAS providers. My name is Reed Howard. I am a senior sales representative here at Seagate, kind of mainly on the West Coast, and just oversee enterprise along with our Seagate systems, and that includes some of the Iron Wolf products that we'll talk about today with you. I'm trying to get rid of a screen here. Sorry about that. All right, let me go forward. So product portfolio, hey, so Seagate's a tried and true hard drive manufacturer. There's 3 of us left on the, global world. So, everybody's probably going to know us from our Barracuda series client compute hard drives, which fit into a number of applications from desktop to general use, everyday PC kind of applications. Gaming or performance. So we have our Barracuda brand in our NVMe products that are going to go into the gaming laptop, stuff of that nature. That's a rather new product. It's gained a lot of momentum and great brand awareness for us. So if you are into gaming, take a look at that. Surveillance products. So you will find some applications where people are using QNAP NASs for surveillance, and we have what we call our Skyhawk series for digital video recorders, network video recorders, and NAS style applications. We're going to spend some time talking about the Iron Wolf series of products, or Iron Wolf Pro, which is for your small office, home office, and commercial enterprise. And the last product portfolio that we'll focus on is Enterprise, our Exos Enterprise brand series, which we have our E-Class series of hard drives, which is 10 terabyte and below, so 1 through 10 terabyte. E-Class just means air-filled hard drives, just to pass a little hard drive knowledge if that's of interest. And then we have our Exos Enterprise X-Class, which is like super cool, like X-Men. And that's helium-based products, and that would start at 10 terabyte going up to 18 terabyte shipping today. And we actually introduced 20 terabyte at the end of this year. And then last but not least, our Nitro Enterprise Class SSDs. So we ship today mainly SAS SSDs, we're well known for, along with Enterprise SATA SSDs. We will drop in a product into the NVMe Enterprise window about beginning or middle of 2022, so something to pay attention as we drive forward. Let's see. Okay, there we go. And just checking the time. And I don't know if I have a hard stop, gentlemen, but you could pipe in and let me know, but I'll continue. I should be done, I think, in about 15 minutes. If you need me to be shorter, just let me know.
Good.
We're good? Okay, so thumbs up. So built for NAS, and we really appreciate the relationship with the QNAP team here and the opportunity to speak with you on what we think is super exciting technology, but hard drives have been around for a long time. So, look for the Iron Wolf brand along with QNAP for what we call our cutting edge technology, how we interface with their technology to kind of keep your data safe and always up and running. And even if you do have encounter a potential drive failure, there's things you can do to move your data around and put a replacement in and rebuild it back in, depending on kind of the RAID set, or if you're doing some kind of slices of data across the different hard drives in your parity, so you can always stay up and running, even if you have a potential drive failure going down. So Iron Wolf product family, because we're going to focus on let's go back. We're going to focus on Iron Wolf because that is our leading brand and technology for the NAS arena, along with Exos Enterprise for those that are in a little bit more of a uber critical kind of environment that want the best-in-class hard drive. Enterprise is going to be the top of the pyramid from our manufacturing Titan standards, and Iron Wolf is slightly below just from a capacity cost ratio, as you guys, because we understand that you're dropping a sizable investment if you're just investing in a small office, home office NAS, or if you're actually buying some of the 8 bay or larger kind of NAS kind of QNAP products, we understand the significance of the investment. So Iron Wolf and Iron Wolf Pro, the Iron Wolf Pro is shipping up to 18 terabyte today, you know, designed for the home office, small office, home office, creative pros, which I know probably a number of you are. We do feature our Iron Wolf 125 SSDs, which again, just for caching, stuff of that nature, you can find those. A number of those are going to be qualified with the QNAP series of NAS products. And then we have the NVMe 510 series, the Iron Wolf, again, for those applications that somebody wants that leading edge performance and the latest form factor, as everything does seem to be, obviously long-term, it's been moving this way for a while, moving to NVMe from SATA. But you can still get both from Seagate, and we look forward to servicing your demand on all those products. So, you know, in every scenario, we feel like we have you covered with our portfolio. Workload in the Iron Wolf class products is at least 300 terabytes per year workloads on the HDDs. On SSDs, we do a 1 drive write per day because most of the application is going to be a read-heavy environment after the data has been written. They're all 24/7 rated products. You have 5-year limited warranty. Today we're shipping conventional magnetic recording, which has been the tried and true standard for the technology on our read and write performance. One thing when you do purchase, you know, Iron Wolf with your QNAP, or if you buy a QNAP box and you go out and buy Iron Wolf or maybe upgrade from a different class of hard drive, you can activate a 3-year rescue data recovery services plan with Seagate on Iron Wolf and Iron Wolf Pro products, just in case of data corruption, user error, something that is damaging your data. Maybe you cannot recover it and your data is the utmost importance, which is probably in a number of all these cases. You can contact Seagate directly and send in your device the actual hard drive or potentially the SSD failure, and we can put it through the rigors of what we call heroic kind of data recovery services to see what we could recover for you, and that comes included with the purchase of the Iron Wolf and Iron Wolf Pro series of hard drives. So some of the technology, you know, we have a marketing name called Agile Array, which basically allows us to sense vibration if there is any in any application. It allows us to give you superior rated performance. You know, obviously we're going to be leading edge on performance. And you have a feature called time limited error recovery, which is just simply put, desktop drives would go into heroic error recovery in case there was an error and tried, you know, a number of instances to try to recover that data. Because you're into a kind of a parity environment or a RAID kind of environment, we'll do data recovery at the disk level for, it's about 7-8 seconds. And then if we cannot recover it on our own, we'll actually turn over the rights to QNAP to recover the data through the parity or the RAID. So it's just it's going to be the best. It's going to be the best performing, best technology that's going to interact in that NAS kind of environment. We have RV sensors that, you know, again, sense for vibration if it's external or maybe internal if there's a fan that's a little noisy within the box. It allows us to kind of feed forward our performance to stay on track to give you the best performance in any kind of environment. And then we scale up to 18 terabyte. The 240 gigabyte entry level capacity is going to be on the SSD. And then you have all the different capacities ranging up on hard drives, 1 to 18 terabyte, on SSD, 240 gigabyte, I believe up to 3.8, going maybe a little bit larger. And then we have compatibility up to the 24 bay with the QNAP family. And, you know, just assure that, you know, we are always working with them at a partner level to make sure all our products are pre-qualified before they are launched out into production, or maybe as we're getting to production out into the market. So you're getting a tried true partnership with QNAP and Seagate. So a little bit on the data recovery services. So you can always upgrade the coverage here, and I believe it said 3 years, but or no, it says up to the standard 5-year warranty period. You can activate your plan. It gives you the link where you can go within 90 days of purchase, and it comes with the 3-year data recovery services. So the actual Iron Wolf and Enterprise Exos, Skyhawk all come with 5-year warranty at a device level. But with the Iron Wolf class of products, you get the 3 years of data recovery services at purchase, and you can activate that after your purchase moving forward. So you just can submit the claim at the link. You would ship us the actual device that maybe is failing or maybe is giving you issues, and everything would happen under a Seagate facility, our recovery labs, to try to recover your data, and we would ship it back. Whether if it's maybe a cloud kind of implementation, or if we loaded it on the replacement hard drive and sent it back. So those are great services. I mean, back in the day, we didn't even have those available in the hard drive industry, so definitely take advantage of that. And then I'm going to wrap up. I know you guys have been kind of under the hood here, listening to a lot of great technology from the QNAP team. Try to keep it high level and friendly for you guys. So Enterprise is the last kind of silo we're going to focus on, the Exos class and Nitro. This is going to be in the top of the pyramid of our product portfolio. The Exos X series shipping an 18 terabyte today, will be 20 terabyte at the end of the year. Is our helium-based hermetically sealed hard drive products. The hard drive industry moved this way, I think back 6 terabyte was the highest capacity many years ago. And then our Exos E series, air-filled class hard drives. It says 8 terabyte on this, but we're starting to ship a 10 terabyte air-filled class product. Why is that important? Because air-filled hard drives are going to be less cost to manufacture. Compared to like a 10 terabyte air-filled and a 10 terabyte helium, you're going to get a significant cost savings. But to get to the higher capacities, you do have to enable that technology lift. And there's a little bit of increased cost to do it, but we're able to do it, and it's still reasonably priced compared to SSDs and those capacities. And moving from left to right on the product family list, we have our Nitro, which is our enterprise class marketing name. SATA SSDs up to 3.84, but we are kind of running into an end-of-life scenario in those and looking for our next generation. And then the Nitro SAS SSDs, we ship the 3031 and we ship the 3231 series. We have different flavors for 1 drive write, 3 drive write, 10 drive write per day kind of class products, and different capacities. So you can find those on the QNAP AVL page, or just go to Seagate.com, look for products, and you can get more details on our Nitro SSDs there. So technology leadership. So Seagate is a tried and true partner. A lot of common platforms, and you know, in this industry, we're trying to get to kind of the electrical vehicle approach, where we all have a same foundation, same platform, and they put separate bodies on the vehicles, and you know, same kind of battery pack configuration. And they look a little different, but everything under the quote unquote chassis or the hood is about the same. So same thing with hard drives. We're shipping a couple different platforms, but you know, 10 terabyte and below is mainly addressed off one platform long term as we drive forward and move into our Exos 7E10, which is our air-filled up to 10 terabyte. And then on the helium-based products, we have 2 platforms shipping simultaneously, but you know, long term, most of those capacities will be serviced off the latest technology up to 18 terabyte, which we have capacities reaching down to 10 terabyte off that same platform. So why is that important to you? Scalability. We're buying the same components, same parts for the same products. It's going to lead to, you know, us to be able to manufacture best in cost, best quality kind of product, and not have like 10 different models. And from a manufacturing standpoint, you never want to stop and change out lines if you can. So if you're only producing 1, 2, 3 models, it's better for you. So PMR, we're going to be scaling up to 20 terabyte. Hammer, heat-assisted magnetic recording, is the new technology as we move past 20 terabyte, where you'll start seeing aerial density capacity increases, where the hammer basically is a laser at the end of the actuator arm right before the head, where we'll actually be heating the media. So as the head passes by from a write or read standpoint, the data is packed so closely, kind of like shingles on a roof. You want to only manipulate the data that you're trying to write, and you don't want to corrupt the data on the left or right side of those shingles. So we'll actually warm the media, and we'll be able to flip those bits from 0 to 1 And then as the media cools, they will actually stay in place, and we won't be able to, from an adjacent track kind of standpoint, affect that data as we're writing other data and maybe in other tracks on the media. So that's the technology becoming. I believe 24 terabyte will be the first capacity that will feature HAMR. We are shipping a 20 terabyte today with some select partners, just as we high volume manufacturing. It's definitely a cost increase, but it's saying in about what was that, about 5 years, we're going to be shipping a 50 terabyte and a 3.5-inch class hard drive. And then they're actually saying somewhere in the calendar year 2030, 100 terabytes. I mean, when I started in the industry back in, 03, I think we were shipping 40 gigabytes as the highest capacity. So it has come a long ways. Mach 2 is dual actuator technology. So if you have an actuator arm passing over the media with 2 heads over each media, now you have 2 independent actuator arms that allow you to increase your performance, theoretically double your performance at the device level. We ship that today in a 14 terabyte SAS class product, and I believe the next capacity coming out will be 18 terabyte. So you, again, double the performance at the device level, the actual hard drive, and that's just unheard of. So check that technology out. There are some select QNAP boxes where I believe that is qualified. We're very excited about that and have a Seagate brand recipe leadership position as our competitors are catching up with that kind of dual actuator technology. So when you think of Seagate, we're vertically integrated from all our component manufacturers, our heads, our media. We have our tried and true supply chain in place in tough situations as data mining and Chia. Always investing in technology and products. We have our in-house ASIC design as we move forward, and continue software development and Seagate systems, and or if it's data recovery services as you go forward. So driving forward, I believe we're into the last couple of slides, and I'm going to try to wrap up here in 3 minutes. So as Seagate customers, all of you have tools available to optimize your performance and your total cost of ownership and quality of service. So you can manage or look at your health management at the device level of the hard drive. You can actually look at if you have a failure, if the hard drive is still spinning up, we can get what we call drive logs about what's going on with your product with our technical team. And then we have what's called active monitoring, which you can kind of do some predictive analysis if a hard drive is starting to maybe not be in balance or stay in its lane, and it's starting to maybe have some additional errors in its performance, or the performance is lagging. You can kind of maybe do some self-monitoring and replace in advance so you don't get into a degraded state. And then we have self-healing, in such a bad sectors, which all hard drives have. There is no piece of media that is perfect. We mark them and move on, and you're not able to write and have to access that sector, and we move that data elsewhere for you. So again, hard drives, they seem boring, they all look the same, but there's a lot of interesting things that go on there. And then Seagate Secure, we offer full level encryption. So just at the hard drive level and SSDs, and we offer what's called a security encrypted disk, SED, and we have SED FIPS, which is a one level up of encryption that mostly governments, some universities use, and everybody looks to Seagate to be a leader in that industry as we source, manufacture, and deliver all the tools to use these products and deploy. And you can always, manage your data, make sure your data is secured, and if any instance that you feel like there's been a exposure, a threat to your data, you can, hopefully you have multiple copies, you can do what's called an instant secure erase and pull that hard drive out of service and repurpose it down the road if you must. Let's see. So again, I think we're driving down the last slide. So just partner program and resources, connect, train, drive. We have training and education for anybody that signs up as a Seagate My Partner. There are tools to help, if you're in business and selling the QNAP services and hard drives within them, you can offer to your customers and educate yourself on Seagate hard drives and SSDs and our technologies and where we're going. And then there's marketing and sales support. So do encourage you to go in and take a look at that. So infrastructure to support you. Product trainings are going to be on there. You can do the test and champions, we call Seagate Champions training site. There's going to be product and competitive information notifications. Our partner portal, partner portal, members only website, exclusive training, support, different sales and marketing resources, and different content for maybe your small business out there if you have a web presence. And you can also always ask for evaluation units. There are some resources you can, if you see a product out there like the Mach 2 is super interesting, or the Nitro, or NVMe that's coming down the pipeline in 2022, you can go in and request support, evaluation unit on loan, do your testing and return it. And then we actually do evaluation systems for large enough opportunities on our 2U12, 2U24 and stuff of that nature. More high level RAID, different level. We're not in the NAS market, so we do not overlap with QNAP. What we call kind of entry level, mid-level RAID storage. So just, hey, as a closing, register a Seagate partner today. It's at seagate.com/partners. I don't know if there's any questions, but I'm happy to stay on the line if there is. I will turn it back over to Eric and the QNAP team. And thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. And, good luck.
Boss, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for that.
Yep, I'm going to stop sharing, and you guys can take control.
Okay, cool. And
There's one question I think we have.
Yeah, looks like we have a quick question for Keith here. If you're using QNAP with encryption, is rescue data recovery service possible?
Let's see. I had to scroll down here. If you're using a QNAP device with encryption, is the rescue data recovery possible? Yes, I think the data can be recovered. Again, I am going to be more of a sales business development liaison, but as long as you haven't enabled like a full secure erase, the data is on there, and we should be able to go in and recover it for you, being it's one of our devices. We actually have some internal tools that I believe we can. But great question, and I appreciate you asking it.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions for Seagate, just let us know. I think we have another question.
All right. Looks like we have.
Did you want me to read it, Eric, or do you want to read it for everybody, or?
Yeah, well, I'll read this. Let's see. Hard drive availability seems low, particularly for large size hard drives, and prices seem to have gone up. Any idea when things might return to normal?
Yeah, hey, great question. So, there are only 3 hard drive manufacturers, so Seagate, WD, and Toshiba today in the world. Everybody was kind of caught off guard with what we call the Chia data mining surge for capacity and demand. We are doing our best to kind of catch up with that because, we forecast and manage our business based on the forecast from our customers and what we predict. So when someone comes in and says, hey, we're in a swing, we need 5 million extra hard drives, and it's unplanned, you can understand how that causes an issue in your supply chain. As we move forward, that demand is starting to subside a little bit. There are some challenges that still exist today in the demand supply scenario, but you are going to see, better availability on the hard drives, and especially this was more about the capacity-driven kind of question. And so it is moving that way. The pendulum is swinging a little bit slowly that way, so it's still in the recovery path, but there is definitely been improvement. Pricing has started to subside a little bit, and unfortunately there are some people that went out and took advantage, and demand was really high, supply was low, so they were able to charge some higher prices than normal. Kind of part of the whole thing. If you look at the use of paradigm, traditional motor vehicles like cars, versus electric vehicles. They're going through the same thing. Not the same thing, but it's a similar kind of parallel. Eric, I'll pass it back to you unless there's any more questions.
All right, thank you, Reed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reed.
No, we have a few questions. We haven't forgotten them. We just wanted to see if you guys have questions. Anyone for Seagate?
Yeah, it looks like there was a few Seagate questions, so we wanted to make sure we get Reed's questions answered, questions for Seagate answered. So we're gonna kind of scroll backwards here, so we're gonna make sure that we have any other Seagate questions that we can get those answered. All right, so that was recovery services. When do we get to participating? You know, we're gonna do a event follow up. We'll have the today's presentation, and we'll give you we'll see what little QNAP discount we can get you guys for participating.
Okay. So let me start with another question.
Deval had another
Because I think we had a question coming up twice. All right, so let's go back through the questions we have from the beginning. So there was a question about snapshot folder, right? So we said we're gonna go through that before. So yes, a great question. So you can create snapshot folder if you don't want to do snapshot for the whole volume. You can actually do snapshot just for that folder. To do that, you just go to shared folder and then create a shared snapshot folder on QTS, and you can create a folder name, and only this folder will be stored in the snapshots. No other folders will have any snapshots taken. So that's a great way to control what you want to do for snapshots. Like again, this goes back to a demo that I did before for QTier, right? You don't want everything to be QTier. With snapshots, similar. You don't want everything to be snapshots, right? You only want certain already important data to be snapshots. With snapshot folder, you can control what you can snapshot. Similarly for QTS Hero, when you create because it's already shared folder only, you can only do snapshots for that folder, and only do snapshots for that folder. For the rest of the folder, public folder, web folder, which you don't need snapshots for, it won't do snapshots. Again, that's a great question. The next question we have is, I think it's more related to a support question. I can think it's a question about the speed, right? I'm using two QNAPs, or QNAP with 2 MEME cache connected to switch using 40 gigabit. I'm not getting good speeds while using jumbo frames. While using without jumbo frames, I'm getting 100 megabits per second without jumbo frames. With jumbo frames, getting 1 gigabits per second. If I understand you correctly, if it's 100 megabits, 100 megabytes, because if 100 megabit, it's way too low. That's even for a 1 gigabit speeds, you're still getting this. It's actually very slow. Again, this question is more related to support, but I can give you some steps to try. First of all, we recommend for 40 gig, anything for 10 gigabits and above, we recommend enabling jumbo frame, because that's going to give you a better performance. Is there a reason you don't want to have jumbo frames? Because if you have a computer, you have 40 gig computer, you have a NAS, and you have a 40 gigabit switch, you should be able to enable jumbo frames on all of them. We do recommend using jumbo frames. Now, for speeds, first of all, you want to identify where the issue is, right? So first of all, on the QNAP side, you can actually do under disk and virtual JBOD, you can actually do performance tests to see if any of the disk is performing slow. If you only have two M.2s, you want to do a performance test to see if there's any slow issues with performance on the two M.2s. And then on the computer, you want to do another speed test on the computer's hard drive to see what the speeds are, and then make sure that the speeds are okay. Now, if the speeds are okay on the NAS and also on the computer side, then there's something else that's causing the issue. If you do go through a switch, maybe do a direct connection to see if maybe the direct connection gives you better performance. If not, then again, there's a lot of steps you can do through SSH. Okay, so it's 100 megabytes per second. It's way too slow for a 40 gigabit connection, because that's just 1 gigabit. That's 1 gigabit speed. That's one GB. Yeah. So something is not correct here. Maybe check your computer to make sure it shows you 40 gigabit negotiation speed. So check all that. If not, then just I would recommend helpdesk.qnap.com. Submit a ticket, and we should be able to take care. We should be able to look at your issue. right? So hopefully that answers you a little bit of your question. Another question we had is, would this work with an SD card to connect it to USB adapter? So I think you're talking about USB one-touch copy. Yes, if you have an SD card, because there's no SD card reader on the QNAP itself, so you need to use an SD card reader, a USB SD card reader. Once you connect that to the QNAP itself, you can do one-touch copy itself. And then another question we have is, what speeds are we going to expect when you're using one-touch copy? I think you talk about one-touch copy. The one-touch copy will, again, the front USB port should be USB 3.1 Gen 1, so 5 gigabits per second. So again, that's the actually USB speed itself. That all depends upon the SD card reader speed, the SD card itself speeds, but it should be, the actual port itself is 5 gigabits per second. So if you have a 5 gigabits per second USB, it'll copy at that speed. So, okay, how to create file screens in QNAP. I'm not really sure exactly what that means, but if you talk about file shares, yeah, that's a great question. So if you have a lot of customers that you do editing for, and you want to, let's say you're done with a project and want to share that to your customers, right? You can, the great way to do is you can just right click on that particular file or folder. You can also do it for folder. Let's say a samples folder. This is a folder for your customer that you have done editing for. You want to share that to your users. You can actually go to share. Share, and you can either email them. You can create you can post it to social media. You can only create. You can, if you have another NAS, you want to share it to another NAS user. But basically, you want to basically going to use share link only. So you can create share link only. You can also expire that link in a certain amount of days. Also, you can custom, so you can select a particular date and time where the link will expire. Also, password protect them. And then here you want to select your My QNAP Cloud account, so you can access it remotely as well. Once you have done that, you can also share this with SSL. So if you have an SSL certificate, so more secure connection. You can also allow them to upload something. If they want to share something to you, you can check this box and they can upload that data into your QNAP. Once you have done that, just create now, and this link will be provided. You can just copy that link here. I don't think I have port forwarding done, so it may not work here, but let me just try it just in case. Yeah, I don't have SSL certificate, so this error is okay. Yeah, actually it does work. So you have sample, so you see as sample file I've shared, you can just click on the sample file. I have 2 music files in here. They can download it right here. They can just look at, they can also stream it directly right here. So they can access the data directly from the share link. So hopefully that was a question. So again, back to Adam's question again, if you're configuring jumbo frames, yeah, that is expected. The jumbo frame will give you better speeds, especially when you're using 10 gigabit and above or 40 gigabit sets. That's going to be because the frame itself, the part size is larger, so it's better for performance. So I do recommend using jumbo frames on your setup. But again, just get in touch with support, see if they can give you any suggestions on that. Lastly, I'm going to share. You guys have any questions, keep coming in. I'm going to share something on my laptop right here. Okay, so you guys can pin the camera. You can see on my camera itself, I have another screen sharing session going on. This is for, I have a Mac computer connected to a Thunderbolt TVS 872 XT. So this is a computer that I'm connected to. Okay, this is a Mac computer that I've connected. Now, when you have a Thunderbolt computer connected to a QNAP NAS, you always want to use QFinder. QFinder will configure your computer to give you the best performance. It's going to disable SMB signing, which is what is recommended for better performance. With SMB signing, you may get lower performance if you don't disable that. So once you install QFinder on your Mac, it will give you the option of doing that as well. So once you have done that, you can just go to QFinder and go to network drives. And then once you go to network drives, enter the username password to your computer, and then you can select the protocol. We recommend for better performance, select SMB NFS. Sorry, SMB and CIF for better performance. Not AFP, not NFS. SMB is what I recommend, and click OK. And you can select which folder you want to mount, and then you can select the folder. So this is mounted using Thunderbolt. So if I open up Blackmagic, you should see the performance upgrade on my computer. So I've selected that my QNAP NAS right here, and if I start a speed test, you can see it's almost reaching 10,000 or sorry, 1,000 megabytes per second. This is the actual speed I'm getting through Thunderbolt connection on my computer. So again, a great way to that's how you can actually mount using QFinder. Using that, you can also open up, and if I open up a Final Cut Pro, I'm not really good at Final Cut Pro. I'll try to see if I can do a small demo. I have an 8K file that I'm gonna select right here. I drag and drop that. I think that's hard. Yeah, I'm not too good with the Final Cut Pro.
We're more storage nerds than video professionals.
Exactly. So now this is streaming directly from my QNAP NAS, and you can see right here it's actually no stuttering. Hopefully it shows clear on your computer, on your screens as well. That's the reason I'm using webcam sharing rather than screen sharing. Screen sharing never shows you better like good performance.
It'll show the buffer.
Yeah, exactly. It shows choppy. Another file right here, which is in a 5K file. So I'm gonna I can drag it. I think that this is how you do it. And if I try now here, now this is again streaming directly from my QNAP NAS on the 872XG, and you can see right here how smooth that playback is. No shuddering, no buffering. It's all going live, no issues at all. Now, if I drag and if I go, I think if I buffer, go see how smooth. If I move the timeline playback bar and see it's going immediately. There's no stopping, there's no buffering. It's all going smoothly on my QNAP NAS. If I make any editing files, it's going to be immediate as well. See, I'm changing color schemes right here. I'm not good at this stuff, but just show you an example of how easy, how good, and how efficient it is when you're using QNAP NAS for your editing session. How smooth that playback is. How smooth the when you do fast forward and rewind. Again, very easy to use as well.
All right, looks like those are a couple questions have popped up here.
I think one last question is, what you said you recommend SMB over AFP for Mac. Yes, for specifically when using for Thunderbolt for 10 GB of Thunderbolt devices, you want to use SMB because SMB gives you better performance. I think AFP, I think Mac also is now doesn't have that much good support for AFP as well in the future. So we recommend SMB for your editing session when using it with QNAP NAS itself. There are certain scenarios when you want to use AFP, where you have special type of file naming structure. AFP, certain types of file may not work with SMB. So AFP at that point there's no option but to use AFP. But if you do have the option and if you don't have any compatibility issue, then I would always recommend SMB. All right, so we're gonna wait for 2 more minutes before ending today's workshop. No, we have a ticket submitted for that. So we had a question about the pop-up that we're getting about the two-factor authentication. We have a feature request ticket submitted to HQ to see if we can. Is there a way to just ignore that or to not show this message again type of thing? Hopefully that will be implemented in the future firmware. But more specifically, this is the pop-up that message issue. If you haven't enabled that two-factor, it'll keep popping up this because we want to make sure your NAS is secure. So this is another great step to secure, but not everyone wants to use the two-factor authentication. So yes, we have taken that feedback and hopefully we can get that implemented soon. And guys, if you have any questions?
What about a week or so? A couple of the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Next couple of days.
Yeah.
We'll have the presentation available in the next couple of days.
Yeah, so this presentation is recorded and we'll be uploading this information to our YouTube channel. Hopefully that should be available and there. So you should see a follow-up email with the information available for this. Perfect. If you guys have any further questions, if not, then we can end today's workshop. Thank you everyone for joining in. Also, all the questions are greatly helpful. And again, if you guys have any further questions, you can always email us as ussales@qnap.com for any users who have any issues with QNAP NAS, as we have one of them. Just email helpdesk. I'm sorry, not email, but go to helpdesk.qnap.com, submit a support ticket, and our support will be able to take care of you.